Following the necessary steps when it comes to all legal matters.
I try to. Charlene Shirk got some
that,
advice
sure.
in this week's Legal Lowdown. Listen up.
The Legal Lowdown is brought to you by the PENDAS Law Firm.
Well, it is supposed to be one of the most joyous occasions, having a baby. But what if tragically your baby is hurt or injured during the birth by the doctor or the nurse? Well, that's why we are here today to talk about what should you do. We're with Lou PENDAS, the owner of the PENDAS Law Firm, and Robert Saunders. Medical malpractice really is your area of expertise, and this is what you're going to walk us through this, because a lot of folks probably don't even think about this component.
Yes, it's very complex. Because it's a medical malpractice action, there are many other variables that come into play as far as pre-suit requirements and what type of records to get before we even move forward. So we're kind of jumping ahead as far as that goes.
And we're going to get into that in just a second, but first we do want to talk a little bit about what are some of the injuries that you do see.
Well, unfortunately, we've been in this so long that we've seen just about everything, a tremendous amount of tragedies. The worst is obviously a stillborn. And that could have been contributed by a multitude of reasons, drug administering incorrectly or deprivation of oxygen. There's a whole slew of reasons why a baby would be born, unfortunately, deceased and obviously caused by the negligence of a doctor or a nurse or a team at the hospital. We've seen brain damages, again, from deprivation of oxygen. And unfortunately, there was one baby in particular that I recall. We handled this case years ago where the baby was born, and the nurse had ironically enough, the wrong type of scissors. And instead of cutting the umbilical cord, cut the thumb off of the baby.
Oh, how awful.
So you could only imagine what happened after that. So we've seen it all, and a lot of these things could have been avoided. And you know, of course, we're here after the tragedy to try to help the family work their way through it.
And some of these incidents don't always occur at the moment of birth. Right. Some of them might have happened during the 9 months that the mom was carrying the baby.
It's very true. And the injury turns out many times to be so subtle you don't know until the child's not meeting milestones that they should be later. You know, when there's a high-risk pregnancy, there are concerns that if it's a maternal fetal specialist or the OBGYN must be aware of. And if they're not being tended to early, that can affect the whole development of the child, and that's not really seen until birth, unfortunately.
And it's such an emotional experience. So what should they do? And you mentioned that you get these calls. I'm sure there's some of the more difficult calls that you have to handle.
Oh,
but you are here to help them walk through this very difficult time. So talk a little bit about what you can do to help them through this process.
Sure. What I would just encourage is to act quickly. Again, the medical malpractice statute of limitations is only 2 years. And you must put on a healthcare provider, you put them on notice of your intention to file a lawsuit. And so that time is just ticking by. And so if there are questions, or if your child is not meeting the milestones that a pediatrician or a neonatologist says that they should be, you must call us so we can get the records and evaluate them, see if there's a problem.
See, and that's interesting, because I would just think, I wonder what's going on, my baby's just not, they're not moving along those milestones. I wouldn't think to call someone like you to talk through the process to see if maybe something had occurred.
Well, yeah, and this is a caveat too. We don't want to make it seem like every birth-related injury or problem is based in negligence. Negligence, as the individuals watching may know or may not know, is really a deviation from the standard of care as it is applied to the medical malpractice statute. So a bad outcome does not necessarily mean that there was medical negligence. That's why it's so important to call us, because we will be in a position, obviously, to gather the information, evaluate it, and properly advise, if for no other reason, to give peace of mind to the individuals that have been exposed to this problem, whether or not there was, in fact, medical negligence, or it was just a simple act of God.
But the child may need future medical care, so that's another
Absolutely.
reason why it's so important to call.
Very much so.
Extremely important. Early intervention is shown to be so important for these types of injuries, and so the sooner the better as far as finding out what type of care is needed and if there's anything wrong with the care that was provided.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I know it's such a difficult topic, but it's a very important topic. And if you'd like some more information, obviously just give them a call at 904-800-0000, or you can go to the pendaslaw.com website, read more information, and then give them a call. And we'd like to thank them for making this segment possible and walking us through this topic.
All right, he says his product,